रहिए अब ऐसी जगह चलकर जहां कोई ना हो, हम सुखन कोई ना हो और हम ज़बां कोई ना हो. Good evening and welcome. This is Jugal Koul, your host, again catapulting you back to one of the illustrious historic show of Sheetalath Conversations, Sunday evening, held at Sunday evening, 7 p.m. IST. And I hope you all are enjoying your Sunday, and this is supper time. These shows, they shine forth through your overwhelming responses, through your overwhelming adorations, through your overwhelming attention. These rendezvous 72 milestone bygone phases have been able to immerse this entire journey of Shidalnath conversations into something very romanticizing, something very salubrious, and some salubrious reminiscences of the bygone times, of the brightness, of the colossal, bright, and brilliant and sagacious legacy that we all inherit. I hope you all must have been basking under its, uh, delight, and also you must be rejuvenating these on these entire, this Sunday programs and conversations which are held on the weekend every weekend with those with the people, men of great eminence, men of great substance, brilliance of the present day, who come here every Sunday to catapult you and transport you to a very, very different plane of the bygone days, of the bygone centuries, of the bygone millennia, sunshine, brightness of the wonderful land, ranging from, tyrannies to turbulences, from transitions, culture, literature, musicology, art, ancient wisdoms, amalgamation, bonhomie, brotherhood, flora and fauna, uh, you know, multi cults, bustle, hustle and bustle of streets, towns, hamlets, peaks, cliffs, and whatnot. So I think we have been experiencing one way or the other way in this program, all these programs, and we all talk about Kashmir, the wonderful land, wonderful native land, this part of the country, crown of India, time, Indian subcontinent, India, and civilization, time, since time immemorial. I remember, since ancient times, we have been just listening and we have been knowing about that Rishi Parampara, the indigenous Rishi Parampara, like in other parts of the country and the Indian subcontinent, was indigenous to the this land of Kashmir. It has always been there, and this Rishi Parampara, the Rishwar, the Himalayan, indeed the Himalayan, the majestic Himalayas, all the seas and saints of this land between the Himalayas and the this Indian Ocean. Many seas, many seas, time immemorially have been going there, going and searching from higher dimensions of life, higher esoteric values of life, spreading their consciousness. And there are many more over there. Who knows? I mean, this is all a mystery, mysterious land. And Kashmir lies in the lap of this Himalaya. And Kashmir has a very added advantage. It was always known as Rishwar, and that is the right word. It was known as Rishwar, the abode of rishis. So Rishi Parampara was always there, and probably Rishi, as per the etymology, probably concerned is that it comes from the Sanskrit word Rishi, which probably means the meditation person who meditates, a person who seeks the higher consciousness all the time. At the same time, he serves the humanity. Not only humanity, he serves the animal kingdom and he serves the mineral kingdom. And we have great seas, and we have Nundresh. We have heard about Nundresh. We'll be talking about detail about Nundresh today. But we know about that unposh teliele one posh. That great slogan was given many centuries ago by that great seer and get that saint, get that Rishi, Sufi Rishi, the personality, spiritual personality of Sufi Rishi order, the patron of Rishi Parampara in Kashmir. He had tried to amalgamate, he had tried to orient the visiting Sufi order which came after the incursions into Kashmir, with the core robust spiritual Rishi order of the of Kashmir. So his troops are very well known, and they are the esoteric valued, poetries, and they communicate the blend of Kashmir Shaivism, Sufism, Islamic Sufism, and other dimensions of this indigenous land. So that's a wonderful thing. But one thing I would like to say, it is very difficult. It's very impossible and rather unjustified to talk about anything on Kashmir without mentioning about the great legend, the great personality of Kashmir, the beacon of light, who stood against on the crossroads again when the entire civilization was getting stalemate in the 14th century. The Laleshwari, the Shiv Sadik Laleshwari, Shiv Sadika Laleshwari, who was into the lineage of Vasugupta's Tarkashastra, which was prevalent tradition in those days in Kashmir. And she always affronted the hierarchy of priesthood around, and asked them to go to the higher dimensions of Tarkashastra, which says for the higher seeking within. And she also confronted. She was a great commentator. She was a rebel. She was a sociologist, and she was besides being a mystic, she was also a great poet. Her poetries, although they are very few in number in original 37, there has been a lot much interpolation about her poetry, and people have tried to divert it. They have diverted probably for the ignorant. But she probably, when we come to the language of Kashmir, thousands years of language which was percolated down through different streams, and finally when she came in, her language, maybe it is rustic, it is raw, it is lucid, but it talks about the social dialect of that time. And it is the I think the original Kashmiri when we talk in terms of this millennia and these centuries, bygone centuries. And it doesn't have any corruption in its wordology. It's pure, it's rustic, and it is not influenced by any external, because by her time the external incursions had occurred, but they had occurred in the periphery of the century. So her whole vocabulary, it is bereft of any outside thing. Like Persian was it was the language of courts and Mughal courts all over India. Urdu is a beautiful language which I love very much. I just spoke a couplet in Urdu of Ghalib. But then again, till the time it had not occurred, it had not come in. Laleshwari's all works, they tell us about the Kashmiri, the original Kashmiri literature. So another great personality I would like to mention, because we have a very, very special guest who will talk about details in all these aspects. And we would like to voyage you through these, because his expertise is very great. He's a very brilliant man. So that is Sir George Ibrahim Grierson, who ultimately was a pioneer. Who did a monumental contribution by creating, in earlier period of 20th century, he created this Kashmiri dictionary of a Kashmiri language, which probably I have heard about. It's a very, very extensive work, and it has many dimensions, from syntax to etymology to many, many things. So all these things we'll be talking about today. We have with us a very, very special very, very special guest, a former dean, this Faculty of Arts, University of Kashmir, a Sahitya Academy Award winner for his contribution to the literature and languages, and state award as well too. Widely traveled personality, who has read papers in the most prestigious venues. He has been representing India on the literary scene, Indian literature, taking Indian literature abroad in the many, many countries. He has extensively traveled, and he is a very prolific writer who has written more than 100 books. He has translated, he has edited, and he has written. He is an encyclopedia in himself, and he is an educationist, author, linguist, and there are many, many names attributed to him. And he is a brilliant scholar, and very convincing, very methodical. He speaks very politely, but his knowledge is very deep. So let's welcome Professor Shafi Shaoq Saab into the studio. It is a great pleasure that his magnanimity, he came to Shitala's conversation, so decorate it further. And let's all welcome him with great depth of our hearts and the warmth our own native son of the soil, Professor Shafi Shaoq.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Saab, you are welcome to the 73rd Sheetalnath Conversations show.
I feel a little embarrassed by your introduction. You have exaggerated many things about me, but I hope I shall be true to your statements about me. So I would love to talk to you. Should I continue in English or
No,
in Kashmiri?
I'll just thank you very much, Shafi Saab. You came again, once again, a pleasure talking to you. We'll talk in English, manageable, because this audience of this program is it's not only Kashmiris who watch it; people across the globe watch it. Our children who are not yet studied Kashmiri, who are born in America, England, they also don't know. So we have to understand through this language only. But
Okay.
it's a great pleasure you came. To begin with, we'll go to the first paraphrase, first segment of this program, because I take people to the nostalgia. It's not exactly nostalgia; it's the prism through which you look at Kashmir, your development, your rising from the land of from the earth of Kashmir, from the soil of Kashmir, and then observing and witnessing the Kashmir. Not only brotherhood, born homie, that is, I mean, that is ingrained into our personalities. But besides that, the topography, the culture, the traditions, the literature, the people around, the inspirations, motivations, and then, I guess, of course, about your own journey a bit. So please, sir, please elucidate.
What's my first question? Should I talk about myself?
No, you should
Mm,
talk about your. You should talk about. You should talk about your
My
journey.
past first.
Yeah, you
Okay,
should
sir.
talk about
All
your
right.
journey in Kashmir. Yeah, just a minute.
All right, sir.
What's happened to this?
Well, my dear friends, I was born very long time ago in 1950 in a remote village of Shopayan district. The name of the village is Kapran.
Okay.
It is the village which has produced three Sahitya Academy Award winners, including myself.
Okay.
Amin Kamil Sahab, Naji Munawwar, and I.
Right.
It is known for being the most literate village in the whole Kashmir. Almost 100% literacy is there. So I belong to that village and I pride in being a resident of that village. Well, when I was born, I was
Yes.
born in a peas- I was born in a peasant's house, a typical peasant's house who my father owned a piece of land and managed it himself. And it was abject poverty. But my father, almost an illiterate peasant, but could read multi volume Masnavis, the long narratives, and the whole village came to our house to listen to him. He used
Yes.
to read it out in his melodious sound. So that is my first exposure to Kashmiri language that my father inculcated my taste in my literature.
Okay.
And then it was a very small house. The ground floor was occupied by the cattle, sheep, and the hens and cocks. It was the upper story, the first story. It had three rooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a small attic. That
Oh,
attic was filled with manuscripts of all nature, Persian, Kashmiri, Sanskrit, and printed books. This small closet, almost uh, avoided by everybody because it was considered to be very sacred. Only my elder brother could enter that. And he had developed this small book house there.
okay.
His name is Naji Munawar, who died quite recently.
Oh,
So I used to gaze at all those books, those huge books, which were almost unscriptable for me. And I used to also gaze at various photographs that were hanging on the wall. For instance, Karl Marx,
oh,
Lenin, Ghalib. Iqbal, and many
Ah,
others, Mahatma
beautiful.
Gandhi. So these figures left an indelible mark on my mind, and I used to think about their lives, read a little about them. But unfortunately, when I was just 6 or 7, my elder brother was transferred to Ladakh for a pretty long time,
Oh,
and I was left abandoned in the village. But my father established a school, the government school, the first government school in his own house in the compound, and we shifted to the granary of that we had in our compound, the whole family. But our house was occupied by the school. It was a primary school, and I was perhaps the first child to get admitted. And my father made it sure that I read quite fastidiously, quite studiously, and I was quite regular in my schooling. It was a time when the whole of Kashmir was experiencing the first years of post-independence era,
ah, yes,
and the political climate was not quite congenial because some very important incidents took place in those years in the early 50s. So it was a strange dilemma for every Kashmiri which way to go. So
yes.
I did not take any impression from any side, but I used to experience it. But when I went to the middle class, eighth standard, I left the school, went to the school, higher secondary school, Chopin, where I found an opportunity of being the student editor of their school magazine. When I could see my journey retrospectively, I sometimes get amazed that, for instance, the magazine is still with me,
Mm.
along with alongside my principal, and this issue contains some of my such writings. For instance, my essay on Julius Caesar,
Oh,
Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I don't know how, where from I got the material, perhaps from a brother who had translated it, but I had summarized the story and seen its implications for this subcontinent, how Julius Caesar is
Julius
meaningful
Caesar.
for people of Kashmir. So, like that. And then when I went to Government College Anantnag. I did my college period there, but I was a science student. I did my BSc, but it was interrupted for certain reasons at, at the 11th hour when I was in BSc final. Uh, I was detained for being very dangerous person, which I was not, and was put behind bars for 2 long
Oh
years.
my God. Oh my God.
So it
Very sad.
was the period of emergency. Sadiq Sahab was the chief minister, and nobody bothered who is there in the behind the bars, who is not. It was a chaotic situation. But I again took advantage of my confinement. I wrote my first book in the prison.
Mm.
That was a collection of essays in science in Kashmiri. For
Okay.
instance, it contains uh, a long essay on cell structure, a long essay on structure of atom, a long essay on fauna and flora of Kashmir, like that.
Oh, that's great.
And at the same time, during my college days, I was editor, not only editor, but the calligraphist of my monthly journal that was called Ash.
Ash.
And
Ah,
Ash, Hope. So this
hope.
Ash magazine, I not only edited, but I used my penmanship because I had beautiful handwriting. I used
Mm.
to penman it myself, then get it printed from Srinagar, and then
Oh,
work as hawker to sell it in the city and come back to Anantnag.
Oh,
So it
great.
was a hectic period for me, and in the course of my confinement in the prison, I did another achievement which had a uh, very uh, important effect on my future life. I did my
Hmm.
BA in English literature.
Oh,
I was
wonderful.
a student. I
Hmm.
did my BA. I was the first student to appear in examination because I fought a case in the Supreme Court to uh, get the permission to appear in the examination. So I did my uh, additional subject in English literature, and soon after getting released, I got admission in the Department of English in the University of Kashmir. So this was my brief journey in my initial impressionistic period. And a very important thing, when I was in Department of English, I used to dabble in many other things. For instance, there was a seminar and I was asked to write something, contribute something. It
Okay.
was only for the scholars, but I was a small student, but I took the advantage and wrote my first essay in English about Lal death.
Oh,
So, but
good.
it was new. Everybody looked at me with surprise. Who is this Lal death? Nobody knew it. Particularly, it was a new name in the Department of English, and I was nicknamed Lal, Lal death.
Arre,
Where
wow.
is where is the nobody called me by my name Laldet. They called me Laldet. But I did not get discouraged. I continued my studies in Kashmiri as well as English. I fought for the establishment of the Department of Kashmiri in the university. There was no department. I, being a little political, I
Hmm.
managed to get the whole university uh, go on a strike for the establishment of the Department of Kashmiri, and I succeeded. So,
Okay.
Department of Kashmiri was established when I was a student. So then the rest is known to all my friends. I continued as a poet, as a critic, as a translator, and so many other things. I became a full-fledged writer,
You have done a
full day.
voluminous, you have done a voluminous work. But first of all, I would like to what was the village in the Shopian you talked about where you born?
Kapren, Kapren, Kapren. So
My
it is,
Masi, my Masi lived in Harman. Makalal Harman was the
oh,
school.
it is in our vicinity. It's
Yeah.
Harman Show. And Arjun Dev Majboor and others were my friends. Makhanlal Pandita and others, they were my
I remember
friends.
the bus going upward through that whenever we used to, because they had the orchids over there. Then summer
Yeah,
vacations जहाँ भी हम दिल्ली में होते थे हम मासी के यहाँ जाना तो
wow,
वहाँ पे काडुर काडुर एक रास्ता था रास्ते में it was a very uphill road we had to pass through,
yes,
but it was very
yeah.
picture beautiful. Shopian is beautiful. I think Teng Sahib is also from
Shupin
Shopian, probably.
He is too from Shupin. He too is from Shupin, yeah. So
Great
many
people.
Muhammad Shamim and so many controversial people belong to Shopee. And even now it is in headlines for
Oh,
other reasons.
now everything is in this. It's everything is it's ailing. Everything is ailing. I mean, you need a kind of a right kind of a medication for that. But anyway, I would like to go to the because I'm a very romanticizing person. I don't look at the bad patches. I always look in my guests. I take them to the romanticizing portions of Kashmir, time, the sunlight. Tell us something about. Did you go to excursions? Did you meet people? How are your the you talked about your father? How are your cousins, the friends? And what was the landscape? What was the big topic of your communism was fashionable probably in your times. Was it?
Yes.
Did it too had a bug infected you? What was happening that time
I, I suffered because of it, 2 years imprisonment because of it.
because of communism? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but Sadiq Saab was himself a communist. Why should have he imprisoned you?
That is enigma because he wanted to be a safe ruler. He did not
Oh,
want any kind of disturbance. And we fought for unemployment. against
Oh,
rising prices, and this was our political program, which
hmm,
everybody could talk about. But we were activists. Yes, I was an activist.
that's so great. So wonderful. So you had
And
many, many events.
I was released when in the evening Sadiq Saab died.
Oh,
This is very important.
yeah, that's so wonderful.
Mir Qasim said, "Who are these peasants put behind the bars? Get them here." And we were taken to his office in Anandnag. So he asked us, "Hey, Grish Chobra, kyo chu gumat? Come back to the track." So we were set free, left at the roadside. We had
Uh,
not a single penny in our pockets. It was evening time, and we didn't know
yeah, I
how
mean,
what to do.
it was a kind of a. I mean, general Kashmiris. They were. I mean, they were not. Not rather, all Indians in those times. People didn't have much money. पैसा था नहीं लोगों के पास. कम पैसा होता था
जी,
और life was very vibrant. It was harmonious, but there was
जी.
always a rebel in the family against the establishment because
Yes.
there was scarcity of money, scarcity of resources all over.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
It was,
Shafi Sahib, you have you have read English literature, and then you were from
yes,
science, then you went to the arts, and you had this quest, inquisitiveness in you to search of yourself. There are
जी,
very few people who are so fortunate who go on discovering and moving on in the life. There are many people who fall to a very formatted structure; they don't go beyond. Tell me something about how were your camaraderie, your fellowship, the people around in your university, and the people whom you taught, the professors who taught you, inspiring personalities who really impressed you. Because there must have been somebody. Don't tell me that there was none. There must have been
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
who must have been your
Great.
ideal.
It was a time when the most uncommon people were very common. This is very important. Most uncommon people were very common. For instance, right from Dr. T. Jaya Raman, he was my head of department and my first
Oh,
supervisor. Then Ali Ahmed Sarur, people like such illustrious people, Ali Ahmed Sarur. I had some kind of liaison with all of them. Hamdi Kashmiri and Muhammad Sultan Want, Rahman Rahi, so many others.
am I
So
right?
I had very close rapport with them because they wanted me to be in the university. That was my blessing. I did nothing for my career, but everything came to me of itself. It came because they had nobody to appoint as lecturer in Kashmiri. I was the only person available to them. Of course, I did not have any qualification, and I still do not have any qualification in Kashmiri. But I was the founder of the department. I could not get the opportunity to get a PhD or MA degree in Kashmiri. I did
Oh.
everything in other languages, in Hindi, in Persian, in English. I dabbled in all arts, but was master of none.
Yes, that's so. We'll talk about your other aspects when we close the program. And certainly, I need it because this is a beautiful, enjoying this conversation. We'd like to go on and on, but somewhere down we have the constraints of the program and structure of the program.
Okay.
Let's come to the second segment, which we're going to talk about today, is the Rishi Parampara of Kashmir.
That's it.
I think the personalities like you who are well read, well exposed, and who have a very neutral point of view to any kind of a thing, any kind of a research you do, because unless and until you are honest, you're unbiased, you cannot research. So, a personality like you, who is so exposed and he has traveled across and knows about a lot of literature and a lot of dimensions of literature, and then you know about the Rishi Parampana, Lal Ded, and all these things you
Yeah,
studied. As
yeah.
you said, people used to call you Lal, although Lal in English means something different.
Mhm.
So that Lal always comes in the historical perspective. But you
But the
tell me,
word lul, the word lul in Kashmiri and Sanskrit
yeah,
means
uh,
lovely and pretty, pretty beautiful. Lalai
yes,
Shivri.
the issue
Hmm.
is beautiful. So let's talk about, first of all,
Very
let's talk about, I'll ask you a question about Laleshwari as well, because here we are very objective. We talk about in a
okay.
very different state. We try to, there is the questions which are there in the subconscious minds of everyone, but nobody speaks. So let's first of all talk about Rishi Parampara in Kashmir, the
Okay.
indigenous spiritual apparatus of Kashmir, whose patron was Nund Rishi, and
Okay.
he was born after Laleshwari, and that period that started a wonderful period of harmony, of galvanizing, of everything was beautiful, unless finally those cruel Afghans came, and Mughals were great connivers apart, but they were brutal when dealing with the natives. So then they came.
Okay.
So let's begin with Rishi Parampara and Nundrish and his personality and other dimensions. Please elucidate, sir.
Okay. Sh- Should I talk about, Rishi Parampara or the tradition of Rishiism is indigenous to Kashmir. Of course, in other parts of the country also we have the Rishi tradition.
Yeah.
But Kashmir is famous for being founded by Kashyap Rishi. So
Yes. Yes.
he is the patriarchal saint who founded the valley of Kashmir, whether it is superstition, whether it is a legend, whatever it is. But Kashyap Rishi is inalienable from Kashmir. Still, we have the Kashyap or Kashyap Mar. Kashmir is also called Kashyap Mar because of
Yes.
Kashyap Rishi. Kashyap Mar, the land of Kashyapa. Since then, since those prehistoric times, Kashmir was having so many sons of the soil who were called rishis. And who were the rishis? In my opinion, they were the most positive thinking people. They were rationalists who fought against superstition, who fought against
Dogmas.
the
Dog,
cruelty,
dogmas.
exploitation, and educated people to be self reliant, to do their own work, not to depend on others. So, the culmination of Rishiism was what we call Rishut of Sheikh Nuruddin, who is very popular by the name of Nund Rishi. Of
Nundrish
course,
is Nundrish seems to be a Kashmiri word, so it is very
yeah,
likable.
but
I love this word.
he himself loved to call himself Nund Koimush. He
Nundukaimu.
used it as in every walk, in every verse. He takes
Okay.
pride in calling himself Nanda Koimush. That means Nund of Koimuh,
Kaimu.
Kaimuh
Okay.
village, because he was
It's near
born
near
there.
Kulgam. Near Kulgam
It is
somewhere.
near Kulgam, Nanda Koimush. So
Kaimu is
Nanda
some.
Rishi,
It's a village near Kulgam.
Ananda, in between Kulgam and Ananda,
Yeah, I
Kaimuh.
have been through that route
Kaimuh.
as well.
And
Yeah.
there is the cave in which he spent some 12 years of
Mm.
renunciation is still there and is much revered by people, common masses. So who was this Nand Rishi? Nand Rishi was a follower of Lal Ded,
Mm.
and he is the first person who has mentioned the name of Lal Ded. Tas Padman Porich Lale,
Hनुमान
Teme
Lale.
Gale Gale Amrit Cho, Tith
Ah,
me,
beautiful.
like that, Tith me Gunditam Divo, etc. etc. So it's a long poem in admiration of his patron saint Lal Ded. So he was the first person to mention her name in the first ever text that we have about Laldet is by Nundarishi. So Nundarishi, uh, and he too is linked to my career. I will tell you why. Because when I was asked to join as the teacher of Kashmiri department, I had no qualification, as I said, but I was asked to write a book on Laldet within 14 days, two
Oh,
weeks.
within 14.
So
Very
I
too
I took this challenge, wrote a good, handsome book, penmaned it myself, calligraphed it myself, and got it published from Lal Chowk. and produced it at the time of interview. And so Nandarashi gave me the job.
Hmm.
No other
Good job.
person gave me the job. Uh, Even now, people pray to Nandarishi for various blessings and for affluence, for salvation, and many other reasons. And that his shrine is, in my opinion, the focus of Kashmiri culture, the
Yeah,
whole Kashmiri culture,
everyone
for
loves
all
Nandresh.
sects, for all religions. There's and of late, my career ends with this book now, which has come recently
Hmm.
uh, uh,
Nund.
out of the
Oh,
press, Nund. So
hmm.
it gives all the shruks in Persian Arabic,
Hmm.
then in transliteration and in translation. And it sells well on the Amazon. It gives the publisher money, not
You
me.
get it on the Amazon. Okay.
So it is a series of books of 20 books, the best of Kashmiri literature. But Nandarishi, to me, is a complete poet. I will not say the greatest poet, not greater than Laldet, but complete
Complete.
poet. Complete in the sense we see all variety of life in his life. He was himself a villager. Uh, all his poetry is takes imagery from, for instance, the practical arts, weaving, cultivation, shepherdry. So
Anthropology, environment, yeah, all the
yeah,
things
from
talks about.
environment, so there is hardly any aspect of life which is not reflected in Nandrishi's poetry, and it is full of satire, and it is full of humor. So I call him the greatest poet in the sense that there is full variety. The whole,
Landscape is covered.
yeah, yeah, the whole life is covered by. For instance, a practical advice: "Yimai mein nare, yimai mein zang, yiman bu mang, yimai mein din,
हाँ वो बहुत प्यारा
yimile
है.
haknam hangat mang, patkas mangat kus me diye."
हाँ,
Like that. It's a long poem. These are my arms and here are my legs. I ask them to give, they give me. If when all of a sudden they will get fatigued, who is there to give me? Like that. He talked about this common life in the speech of the common people. That is his greatness. And great poetry always goes back to the living speech of the era.
it I mean it touched to the I mean the essence of the folk lore and the lucidity and the
Yeah,
simplicity of life. Like
yeah,
Tolstoy said, it's very difficult to write simple. It's very
mm,
simple to write
mm,
difficult.
exactly, exactly,
आजकल जो very
exactly.
difficult लेखा वो बनाते हैं इधर से उधर से, but there is no soul in it.
No,
But English, I mean,
he avoided indulging in riddles, and of course
here
his
and
verses
there,
are called shruks. Shruks, shruks means a thought to ponder over. Shruk,
to ponder over.
not a not. It is to be so it is a
Stroke, yes,
resolved.
stroke. ना मना क्वेश्चन
Shruk,
पर
yeah,
stroke.
yeah,
Stroke.
shruk, a not. That means a knot of thought for common people. Think over it. And like old hermeneutics in Europe, he used to roam around and ask questions and got the answers. क्या करे तंदुरुस्ती doings क्या करे in his tear command, etc, etc. He used to question long series of questions to the common man to ponder over. This is his greatness, like hermeneutics. So hermeneutism is the essence of his poetry. He never gives you ready-made answers, but seeks answers from people. That is his greatness. And in brilliant imagery drawn from the environment, drawn from his nearest environments. Mm.
That's wonderful about him, and I have also heard. I mean, I read all his. I have read some of his poetry, not all, but
Mhm.
Strooks, because Lalde I translated also. But then one fine morning, I thought, no, I am dishonest because I don't know the exact word of Kashmiri. Some
Yes, yes,
words I don't know, so I have written it
yes.
as a haywire. So, but Nundresh I have studied. I've seen his address to the anthropology, environment, and all
Exactly.
aspects of this life, landscape of life prevalent in those days. But also, he has talked about the blend of the practice of religions.
Right.
Although he was himself a spiritual person is
Mhm.
above religion. Religion
Mhm.
comes to the lower domains for the people who are ignorant. But then again, he's blended very beautifully the Kashmir Shaivism, Sufism, and even
Exactly.
he talks nowadays. I find these things missing. I don't know. It should not be. As a honest Kashmiri, we must present. Nundresh as he was
Yes.
in its totality. But that will be justification and spirituality as well. I find many, he has even talked about Rishi Parampara before him. He has talked about Rishi
Yes.
Vanaki. He talks about Rishi
Mhm.
Vanaki in one of his
Mhm.
couplets. And then he
Mhm.
talks about
With
Ravana and
Zalka Rishi and Ravana and
लॉर्ड रामा आई डोंट फाइंड जब
Rama.
भी मैं देखता हूँ कहीं तो मुझे वो चीजें मिलती नहीं है मैं कहीं कुछ बुक्स में है कुछ में नहीं है तो आई फील दैट दिस इज समथिंग मोस्ट अनजस्टिफाइड यू शुड प्रेजेंट हिम इन टोटलिटी व्हाट ही सेड पर्पस
Exactly.
इज पर्पस वाज एसोटोरिक इट वाज हायर कॉन्शियसनेस it was purity it was humanity it was mankind but he used the tools of religion and cultures probably this is what I think I don't know I may be wrong you can correct
Exactly.
me.
Yes. Yes.
So
Mm.
that's so wonderful. You talked about Nundrish, and I think Nundrish
And
is
he
the
established an institution. He was not an individual only, individual rishi, but
yes,
after him, it became an institution and it still continues. There are hundreds of rishis after him and who tried to follow him. But his poetry was, and he has one more significance. His poetry is the earliest extant written manuscript that we have, earliest one. That means only in the 16th century when he belonged to this 15th century. His Govind Pandit was one of them who
yes,
scribed his verses, and Nasr Boy was always with him. He remembered, and Govind Pandit, sorry, Kanta, out of Kanta, Kant Pandit,
George Point.
he Kant Pandit, his manuscript, and then after him, Amir Abdullah Baihaqi was the first saint who has compiled his verses thoroughly, made the first collected collection of Nand Rishi's verses. It has been recently published by my brother Kuliyat Sheikhul Alam, along with the bibliography and in the glossary.
That's so great.
Kuliyat Sheikhul
It
Alam.
needs to be justified by the people like you, and they have to because unless and until the people who have in-depth knowledge and honesty of the purpose, unless until they come in, because we are nowadays we are in a time of oxymoron. I mean, there are 1,500 books written on Kashmir. I don't know, cut copy paste
Mhm.
kind of a writers.
Exactly.
There are a number,
Of
and
course,
therefore
Kashmir has become a career. Kashmir is a career, a bright career for filmmakers, for journalists, for novelists, for
no, but
everybody.
what
It
I'm
is a
talking
career,
about
but to me, I hate the word careerism in Kashmir. It takes things to ugliness if
yes.
it becomes a career. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, Kashmir has become a career.
Because I think we Kashmiris are responsible also for that because
Yes, exactly.
80% of contribution 80% of this this jerk is being done by Kashmiris. Well, I read books, it
And
gets
where
more.
the stuff,
Yeah.
where the stuff for these who created the industry on Kashmir? Where the stuff of that industry?
No, no.
Mhm.
Yeah. Kashmir. I think if our literatures, our artists, our leaders, they would tell Kashmir is the truth about the past, truth about the present. They would not treat them as a divergent and a hybrid kind of a thing. Things would have been smoothened. Our people, our generation, younger generation would have been proud of it. But now they are
Yes.
not because we have been dealt very wrongly by the many forces, unseen forces. Anyway,
That
that's
is
not
a
the subject matter of my
different
discussion.
subject. Let us not dabble
that's
in
not
that.
that's not subject matter of my discussion. Now let's go to the another aspect, another segment of our program conversation with you. You done a very voluminous work on Kashmiri, what do you call it, Yugar, what is it, you use the Persian word for that, dictionary, Kashmiri dictionary, voluminous
Yes.
dictionary पे आपने
Yes.
काम किया. First of all,
Yeah,
let's begin with the
mhm.
Grierson. Let's begin with the Grierson
It
because
is my dictionary. It is
yes,
my dictionary. The first of its kind, based on the consonants, and etymology is in Sanskrit, Persian, and Arabic, particularly Sanskrit etymology, because I have given the etymological root of every word in this in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit Lipi, I can type and
your
read and
etymology,
write
your
Sanskrit. That is my additional
let's begin
ability.
from the let's begin Shabi Saab, let's begin from the Grierson, and
Yes.
probably after Nundresh and Laleshwari was the originator. After Laleshwari, Nundresh, and then Haba Khatun, Arnimal, and Rupa Bhavani, Mata Rupa Bhavani.
Mhm.
And I don't think much was there available. Maybe it was available in the folklorish way, but they were the main pillars and pyres of this entire
Yes.
edifice of
Yes.
Kashmiri literature.
I
But
perfectly agree with you. I agree
yes,
with you. Yeah.
yes, we needed finally we needed somewhere down the line to you know some wise person to come, and finally wise person was sent by the god, and
Yeah.
it was a colonial rule of British India, but they had very good people as well, that Irish gentleman, uh, Grierson. And let's talk about his contribution. He came into the early part of the 20th century. Let's talk about his work, his dictionary, and the lull word I'm making use of here, lull between these great poets up to 16th 17th century till Rupa Bhavani, uh, and after that this entire this when this Afghanis came in and other people came in, this whole entire thing was they were surviving, and we took to I was there was a guest in my this conversation last time, Ashok Kolsa, sociologist. He said that Kashmiris had to take up the Bandapathar, Ladisha. They had to, I mean, subdue themselves to a inferior kind of a expression of thought, because monarchies were so hard hitting, so they could not fight with the monarchies. So let's talk about this entire Grayson's contribution when Grayson and finally Grayson came.
Yes.
Yeah,
I have written extensively about Grierson, and
yeah.
I have also prepared a film for UGC classwork, and it has been telecast several times. That covers all the aspects of his work. I am yet to see a person in any language who has done such a monumental work in all the languages of India. For instance, his only one work to mention is Linguistic Survey of India, the first of its kind, 19 volumes. Each volume contains several parts, and one of those several parts is about Kashmir. It's a huge 800-page book about Kashmiri language. So, such a in-depth study was done by Grierson, and he was not the only person among the Britishers. There were so many benefactors of Kashmiri people, the Indian people, particularly Oral Stein and others,
All
who
Stan
discovered
and
rice
Lawrence
farming and translated
Lawrence
it.
and other people. Yeah.
Yeah, so many others. But unfortunately, Grierson was almost ignored. Nobody reads him now because he has done so much of work. I cannot, in terms of quantity, I have nothing. But in
Research.
comparison, in terms of quantity, I too feel belittled as in comparison to Grierson, because there is hardly an aspect of Kashmir. For instance, grammar of Kashmir in 4 volumes, dictionary of Kashmiri language in 4 volumes. This is his dictionary,
Yeah.
and very comprehensive. I can zoom just one page. You
Yes, yes,
see
yes.
the extensive work he has done single-handedly. Each word in transliteration with etymology, in Sanskrit translation and explanation and grammar. Everything is contained in this dictionary. But what prompted me to produce a new dictionary was that since 19th century, Kashmiri language has undergone a tremendous change in terms of lexis, in terms of syntax, in terms of grammar, etc., etc. And Grierson's dictionary is not readable for common people. It is a specialist's job. It is not for common people because one has to be abreast with the Sanskrit script. One has to be abreast with the Sanskrit grammar, which is impossible for an ordinary person. So many thousands of words have been left out because they were not in vogue in his time.
Yes.
So there is need of newer
Yeah, I
dictionary.
mean,
My
it is
dictionary
always
is not the final.
mm,
Newer dictionaries are to be prepared in the language. So
good.
also this one, Lala Vakiani, the first translation of Lalit with explanation, glossary, and everything. It was not extant. I got a copy from London, got it reprinted along with introduction and and a glossary and annotations, etc. And now it is available in the market everywhere. Many of my readers read this book of Lalit. I have produced some 5 books on Lalit in English only. So
That's
some of them are translated in different languages of India, also Marathi, Telugu, Kannada. So this much work I don't claim to be a big writer, but I am a whole-time whole-time writer. I hold these computers and everything. I can go on writing and writing, whether it is of good standard or bad standard, that is not my question. I engage myself. This is my engagement with a sort of confronting.
what was Shok Sahab, I'd like to ask one thing. We are talking about only the text, the context, and the literature. What was the? I mean, we had a very good institution which started in the JK Academy of Art, Cultural Languages, because I am a theatre. I was theatre myself. I was theatre critic. I think for 40 years, but they have done something in theatre. I don't know paintings. The paints की हालत बहुत बुरी है तो मैंने देखा वो they are not stored. But tell me something about Kashmiri dictionary. I mean, it would have been very, very because so much fundings from the institutions of from New Delhi, human resource development, and many, many things come in under the garb of one particular. I mean, this or another. But what were their contribution? I want to really know because institution hai bahut bada. JK Academy of Art, Culture, Language is not a small thing. It was opened up by the great people. Even the Sheikh Saab and other people they contributed.
Jugal Koul and others, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Mohammed
So what
Suteng.
was what is their contribution in
Their
because
contribution, I will just sum up in 2 or 3 sentences, is that they published all the books from manuscript form into the modern readable Kashmiri script and
okay,
published them beautifully. All the books. I say with emphasis, all the books. There are thousands of books they have published and made it accessible to the common people. This is their one achievement. So far as dictionary is concerned, I was one of the staff members of the dictionary. I too
oh,
have earned. I started my career with dictionary,
that's
dictionary
right.
project in the Cultural Academy as research assistant. But unfortunately, it was a time when many things were not known to people. For instance, linguistics was a new word for them. I will tell you just one example. They arranged for this 7 volume dictionary on the basis of vowels,
Okay,
which no language of the world has done.
it's alphabetical order. It's an alphabetical
It
order
has to be
always.
alphabetic, consonantal order. So
Yeah,
the consonantal order is to be retained. Even Sanskrit is not based on vowel system. It is based on consonants. So consonants are the that's one aspect. The other aspect is that the etymology is given almost 90% is wrong. So, and then it is rather a thesaurus than a dictionary. I will take just the first word, ab. Ab
mm,
means what? The
yes.
dictionary meaning of it is poon.
Mm.
But my child will ask me or asks me, what is the spoon? I am rendered mute. because I have to explain what poem is. What poem is ab is poem. This
Yeah.
is no dictionary unless you give what this material is. So unless a good dictionary gives us something about the nature of water, it is
Hmm.
meaningless. Similarly, for instance, the grammar in the brackets and within parentheses, every word in Kashmiri has a gender, masculine or feminine. Every word in Kashmiri has a gender, masculine or feminine. But masculine and feminine cannot be denoted as nar and mada. That is a biological term. That is a. How can you say hawa chu is masculine, water chu, but so
Hmm.
many zameen che, and so on. So the biological terms cannot be used in grammar. We have to keep the linga either Satrilinga but that is very confusing. In Persian, we have better words for this linga, for gender. Muzakkar to muannas. It has nothing to do with biology because it has so many connotations, very dangerous connotations, which cannot be discussed here. Why certain things are masculine and why feminine. So, leaving that discussion aside, there are so many other flaws.
So
Thousands of
you meant to say, I mean, this it was not the whole work of creating after Grierson. I mean, there was a lot of lull between. He did it in I think 1910 something like that, and after
eh,
that, our institutions which came into existence post independence of the country, I mean, they could not create a decent, workable, authentic, pragmatic dictionary of Kashmir. So
yes,
that
yes,
is
they
some.
couldn't. They could not. They could not. I will tell you why. Because when it is an institution, you have to follow the boss, and whatever it is always
Bosses.
arbitrary. Bosses, he bossed us, and we had to follow him. Otherwise, we had to lose our jobs. Thousands of words are left out, and whatever words are there, I this is my challenge to every scholar. Find a word in the Cultural Academy dictionary. It will take at least 2 3 days to find out a word. That confusion is there. So the order is wrong. That is why that prompted me to write a new dictionary prepare. And it took me 8 long years to prepare this dictionary.
It's a lot of
Some
time.
1400
8
pages. I
years.
did it single-handedly. And I believe that every good work is done by individuals, not institutions. Never.
That's true.
Whether it
It
is
has always
poetry,
been
whether
there.
it's novel, whether it is
It has
fiction,
always
diction,
been.
individual matters, not the
Even
institution.
for that matter, the non-formal historians, non-classroom thinkers, they are much
Exactly,
brilliant. They are much brilliant,
exactly,
better
exactly.
than the classroom
And a
instructor.
very interesting thing here to remember, before the establishment of Department of Kashmiri,
Hmm.
all the writers, all the poets and prose writers were at least double MAs. Persian, Arabic, Sanskrit, Hindi, it's Arabic. They knew many languages. But now it is altogether different. The students of Kashmiri to my department, I will say, are MA Kashmiri, having no knowledge of any other language. This is very unfortunate.
That's tragedy. That's a tragedy.
And even now, the best poets, writers are outside the Department of Kashmiri, outside the Cultural Academy, outside the institutions.
It
There
has
are
been
individuals living in different rural areas. Some are away from Kashmir, and they
limelight in
do
institution.
commendable job there, even in isolation. Of late, I had the chance to translate Pran Kishore's novel, Gulshan Gulfam, uh, that sells well on Amazon. Now I went to New Delhi to release his new book, Zoon Zafran Zaran. It was a wonderful event there in All India International Center. What is it? Whatever it is, IIC, India International Center.
India
Uh,
International Center. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Almost the whole community of our brothers and living in Delhi were there, and it was a nice occasion for me, a brilliant occasion for me. I wrote the introduction to that novel. It is a wonderful novel, and of late Chamanal Huku's novel, uh, Ustur Vanuks. To me, it is a world-class masterpiece. But unfortunately, written by a person who died in some alien land, not alien, but away from Kashmir, his
Away
mainland,
from Kashmir, yeah.
Jamlal Haku, and he's forgotten. Why so? Because Kashmiri language has become a career. Career in the sense that do MA Kashmiri and be its professor. You need not read any other literature. That is the problem.
That's so
This is
right.
very this happens with all other languages since 1947 when departments of different languages were established and people claimed to be scholars who had
Which
MA
they were
in
not.
those.
Hmm.
They were not. And whosoever good writers we have, they are away from academia of
It has been,
universities
Shok Saab, it has been so across the globe. I mean, although in
across
earlier
the
times,
globe. Yeah.
across the globe, it has been so from the time of Tolstoy till yet.
Most of the great writers do not belong to any university, do not belong to any
They
institution.
don't belong to
They are
university because they
individuals.
are not conditioned. They are not conditioned.
Yeah,
And
they are
we
from
have Van Gogh is the biggest example in front of you. I mean, till the time he'll live. Even all fraternities. I'm not talking about only
all
about the
the whole
literature. All
pattern.
fraternities.
We cannot name all of them.
But I feel very much hit that I have got because I've lived in other parts of Kashmir as well, other parts of the state and country. But I've seen that these 30 years, 40 years, what progression Dogri language has made. Dogri is a wonderful language for state.
Yes.
What progression it has made. Kashmiri, I think it is going haywire. Although there are people like you, there are many people out, and there are unknown people, anonymous people who are contributing. But
Anonymous
somewhere
people.
down the line, there's lack of cohesion, lack of. I mean, I don't know. There's something missing.
Because of certain political, certain conditions,
I mean,
certain which are beyond our control, and then the whole scheme of things, managing things, has gone to wrong hands. Has gone to wrong hands
it has always
because
been
of the circumstances.
there. सुना ये क्या वो क्या खड़पेंच कहते हैं ना खड़पेंच जो आता है तो
Yeah,
वही सब
that
ये सब
Khadgunch Raj has become the.
मैं छुपा के
And I am
रखता हूँ.
not one of the Khadgunches. Never. I will never be or never accept to be the
आई नो
Khadgunch.
बिकॉज आपके पास इतना टाइम ही नहीं होगा आई मीन ये
I
उन
don't
लोगों
have
का
time.
काम है जिनके पास टाइम बहुत होता है जिनके पास जिनको स्कीमिंग करनी है कंस्पायर करना है द पीपल हैव टू क्रिएट कहाँ इतना टाइम
But
होगा
I think we have to go beyond the university academia. Of late, I translated a book, for instance, Myoin Kath by Shamla Mufti. It is a wonderful autobiography written by the most emancipated woman of Kashmir or post-independence, Shamla Mufti, the famous
नम
professor,
ऑफ ईयर्स
the dramatist, and other things, social activist. And it is her biography. I retained the title also, Mein Kath in English, but it is such a wonderful book that I wish that everybody read it. It gives the whole scenario and she did not belong to any university. Uh, she was not among the khad punches. That is the problem. That is
वो
the
भी
nice.
it so happens. Anyway, I mean,
Mhm.
Professor Saab, I would like to say that when you talk about your work of Kashir Lugat, why did you choose Lugat? You could have chosen any other word.
Yes, I could say dictionary as academy people did it. I could say Sanskrit word Shabdakosh. I could say, but there are some Shabda. The first dictionary was from Pandit Ishwar Kaur. He
Panditeshwar.
used the word Shabdakosh, and Grierson depended on Ishwar Kaur, Shabdakosh. But
Yes.
the problem is that Kashmiri is nowadays written in Perso-Arabic script.
Yeah,
Perso-Arabic,
Masai.
it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with because the greatest of the great Indian poets have written in Perso-Arabic. Even Kabir
Yeah,
and
it is,
others.
yes, that's a known
It
fact.
has nothing to do with religion. But Logat is very familiar. For we have so many dictionaries in my collection. Ferozul Lagat, Jamiatul Lagat, Jamul Lagat, etc. etc. So
That's
Lagat
become
is such a common word.
synonymous with
Mm. Yeah. So why should I use an unfamiliar word
Hey,
for common people?
I want to ask one thing in this regard. There are many things which come because you have done a. I mean, ऐसा काम किसी ने किया नहीं है. You have done such a great work. It will be.
Mm.
I mean, great because I heard that it was. It has you have all the names from botanical to sericulture to the aquaculture. You have used. You have almost given meaning to the every word in
I have tried.
landscape existence. Yeah, but what I'd
But
like to say there is a section.
in Grierson's dictionary or in Cultural
Yes,
Academy dictionary, all the flowers are named as meant as a flower. What does that mean? Rose, imbroxol, narcissus, hyacinth, everything. And the meaning is a flower. It has no meaning. It is not a dictionary meaning. The dictionary
oh,
meaning is complete when it gives the exact vernacular name, botanical name, zoological name, only
zoological
then.
name, political. Yes.
Yes, and the description where it occurs, in which season it is found. The whole thing is to be given in the dictionary. Only then it is a comprehensive dictionary. Otherwise, it is just a assemblage of words. And dictionary is never an assemblage of words.
That's true. There is Shok Sahab, there is one is the dictionary for the literatures, the
Yeah.
people who write. One is a
Mm.
dictionary which is for the commoners. They are not two
Mhm.
dictionary. They are the one dictionary. There should be one dictionary.
Exactly.
But
Mm.
there are certain sections. Kashmiri is being dialect is being spoken in different parts of like in Kishtawar, Kashmiri is
Yeah.
slightly different. In
It is
the
so.
other Lolab side, Kashmiri is Kashmiri Pandits. I mean, who are other Kashmiris? All we are all Kashmiris. I don't like calling Muslim and Pandit. This was never I never
No,
used this word.
but
But Kashmiri
dialectal
Pandit,
variation is there.
there is
Dialectal variation is there.
director variation.
We
There
have
is say
class dialects, we have regional dialects, we have professional dialects, we have
dialect.
sectarian dialects, definitely.
So there
And
are
the
certain
language,
words.
the
Yes, there
beauty
are.
of the richness of the language is when it
It should
has so
assimilate.
many dialects. When it is an assemblage of so, it should not be a homogeneous.
Exclusive
Yeah,
exclusive नहीं होना चाहिए, homogeneous
never,
नहीं होना
never.
चाहिए, heterogeneous होना चाहिए. Yes, it should be
Heterogeneous.
heterogeneous. uh, like I say, I remember Ab is not a new word. It's not new
No,
addition. Ab was
no.
there. My auntie, Zoon auntie, used to call Ab. My mother used to call Point.
Mm.
Same thing. We are living
Mhm.
together at micro level. We were the one. Macro level state what was doing we never knew about. But
Absolutely.
at micro level we were the one. We had a very cohesive relationship, and Ab and Point, both words are spoken by the Kashmiris. It's not that
Exactly.
one
And
is
my dictionary contains both the words ab
that's
at its proper position and pooing at under p per sound. So
yes,
both the
that's
words belong to Kashmiri. So
Kashmiri
we
word.
have
Yeah,
in English, take any word from English. It has so many synonyms, and all the synonyms are included
synonyms.
in the dictionary as separate entities, separate
That's true.
entries, isn't it?
That's super. One more thing I want to ask you, Shok Saab, because I think जितना आपने काम किया है, the kind of work you have done, I mean, we should not be. I mean, I'm not a person to ask you questions because it is so
Why
sincere. You
not?
cannot do
Why
such
not?
a great work without sincerity. But I would like to ask one thing. Urdu, the Mughals used Persian. Brute Afghans used Persian at the court language. Mughals were also brute, but they were the
No.
connoisseurs of art, literature, architecture. But they were brute as far as Kashmir and other parts of the India were there. But
Mhm.
question is, the Persian was there in India, in Indian subcontinent. It was not
The
only
whole,
in Kashmir. It was
the
not
whole
only in
Indian
Kashmir.
subcontinent.
And Urdu language is one of the beautiful languages which has happened because I relish. I write in Devanagari because I was brought up in a Devanagari, but I write
Mhm.
Urdu. Well, इतनी
Mhm.
उर्दू लिखता था, but only in Devanagari. मुझे script, there was nobody to teach me script. Question is, Urdu is already a language which has Persian influence, but it has its own identity. That is Urdu, Indian language, Indian Urdu
Mhm.
language. And
Exactly.
Persian, if Ghalib is written in Persian as well as he's written in Urdu.
Mhm.
When we
Iqbal,
read his,
Iqbal also.
yeah, Iqbal
Iqbal
also.
also.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When we read Persian, they are so heavily loaded with the Persian. When we read Urdu, it is as if it is very familiar with the
It is common man's language. It is the
common man's
language of the films. It is the
common
language
man.
of TV serials. It is the
Yeah,
language of the
beautiful
common
language.
man.
Beautiful
Mhm.
language. like Hindi and other Bijbrashi or
Okay.
Awadhi or other languages, it's also the it is the Urdu is beautiful. But one thing is there, how much of like in Kashmir, how much of it, how much of Urdu is Persian? We can say it is zir Kashmir Persian, man zir that's a zir Persian. Magar
Mhm.
basically core is Indian.
You mean
So same
Kashmiri?
way, yeah,
You mean Kashmiri, not Urdu. To me, it's a question for Kashmiri.
yes.
In so far as Urdu is concerned,
No,
almost
no, Kashmiri. I'm
99.
saying I'm giving a simile. I'm giving a simile.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
why should we
In Urdu,
overload it?
in
Yeah,
Urdu, almost 90% words are from Persian. 90% words. But in Kashmiri, there is a mixing of words.
mm,
Kashmiri language is a living language. It
it's
has
a
been
living,
a living language
spontaneous.
of a living people for thousands of years. It has been borrowing from other cultures that it has come in contact with, whether they were the Tartarians,
Grecians
Mughals.
were there, and other people came
It
in.
has always
Pali,
borrowed. It has
Pali,
always,
Brahmi,
and it
Sanskrit.
speaks of the health. It speaks of the health, the life of the language.
Mm,
Only a living language can borrow. A dead language is dead
cannot go.
because it does not borrow. That is the definition. That's the basic definition. For instance, old Latin, old Greek, or old Sanskrit, it does not borrow. So we call them dead language. Not dead in the sense that they are redundant. No, dead that they are not spoken in any particular area. They do not have any area of occurrence. They do not have any community, linguistic community. They do not borrow. The
Because it
language,
always because there is another aspect to it. They remain the language of the courtiers, and they didn't allow it to flow down to the common milieu. That is also one of the
exactly.
aspects.
Kul
Yeah,
parampara acharya. I
mm.
will use
Yes.
your phrase, Kul Parampara Acharya. So others, the commoners, were excluded from this Kul Parampara
Varakat
Acharya,
was for the common.
the
Yeah.
dynasty tradition. It was mm, Sanskrit, and old Kashmiri was monopolized by certain people, certain sects. They did not allow the commoners to enter in.
Oh,
So
it was
Kashmir
everywhere. It was everywhere. It was all over India.
everywhere, even in Persian, the classical Persian was the of
Elite.
the elite class, but the
Yeah.
common people spoke a Persian that's easily borrowed from
Shoksa,
English,
Shoksa,
Urdu, and other languages.
I would like to say one thing. I will ask one question. That there has to be a reasonability. Reasonability, because Kashmiri, as you said, is an organic language, and
Yes,
Laleshwari is the biggest example, but not
exactly.
influenced by anything from outside.
Mhm.
Nundresh came, things were changed, people came from outside, Persian came,
Yeah.
everything came, but Laleshwari was yet it was the
Mhm.
original form of Kashmir.
Mhm.
So, how much we have to do a Lakshman Rekha? Na? There is to be demarcation. It should not happen that it becomes a Persian language per se. It
No,
doesn't.
no, it will never become. It will never become. For instance, I will use this. This is the word. Why should I use Persian word for this thing? It is a computer. It
Yes.
has come along with the word from
Mm.
Europe, from America. It has become a part of my language, computer. So my dictionary should include this
Yes.
computer, what computer is, what mobile is. There are
Mm.
thousands of things in my house.
Technological advances are there. They need to be
So
amalgamated with the
it is
dictionary.
the cultural contact that necessitates borrowing. Cultural contact. Without any cultural contact, if any word is borrowed, then it is meaningless.
Mm.
If we borrow, for instance, a word from Chinese, we
Mm.
don't have any cultural contact with them. Why should we? So we don't borrow from Chinese, we can borrow from English, French, and other cultures. Hindi, of course, Urdu, Persian, because they are neighboring languages. We have been having cultural contact with their linguistic speeches for centuries together. So they continuously affect my language so far as its lexis is concerned, word
That's
fund is
true.
concerned.
So that's so
So
wonderful, and I think we have learned a lot today, and we have understood a bit of
I have
what's
learned many things.
your mechanism how did you work, and what was your modus operandi at the mind level, So it is, since the program has a very limited scope, we can go on and on, because you are a prolific writer. And before I talk, I would like to, before we start, I'd like to ask you something about your literature. You have written a couple of books, and you are a great poet, a multilingual poet. I'm also a multilingual poet, but not celebrated one. I'm anonymous. I live in anonymity. I started with English, Hindi, and Urdu.
Okay.
And Kashmiri, I always wanted, but I didn't find a great dictionary because there were certain ambiguities. I would like you to recite some of your poem, one of your poem, two of your poems, English, Kashmiri, whatever you like to start with.
Okay, you may call this poem Hindi poem or Urdu poem. I
Any
when
poem,
I
sir. Any
go to, when I go to Hindi speaking writers, I call it Hindi poem, Kavita. And when I go to a mushaira in Bangalore or Delhi or any other place, among the Urdu poets, I change like a chameleon, call it Urdu poem. So, but I write in an idiom that is in between Hindi and Urdu, and I believe that the two languages are one. Only
poem.
the lipi matters. Lipi is an extraneous thing. It is not the genius of the language. So, for instance, this poem,
Hmm.
ये दुनिया खूबसूरत है.
Hmm.
Uh,
Beautiful.
हमेशा हादिसों बर्बादियों और आफतों के बीच से गुजरे शिकस्ता बालों पर लेकर ये दुनिया फिर से बुलबुल की सदा से जाग जाती है. हमेशा
No,
सुबह होती है कि
beautiful.
दुनिया खूबसूरत है, बहुत ही प्यारी लगती है. ये कई बंदों में है, कई पार्ट हैं इसके. कभी नाना के घर में खेलते बच्चे पुराने बंद कमरे से कोई बेकार सी चीज पाके दौड़ आए.
Mhm.
गर्द
Beautiful.
आलूद सफ़ों पर स्याही से लिखे लफ्जों में कोई मशरकी तहरीर देखें और हैरान होके अपने बाप से पूछें कि ये क्या चीज है
Hmm.
बाबा. वो देखता जाए तो बरसों से खुश्क
Yeah.
उफ्तादा चश्मे फिर उबल पाए. ये दुनिया खूबसूरत.
That's so wonderful.
like
Wonderful.
this, like this. मतलब my grandchildren, when they come to my house from USA and ask me what are these things here, I, I have to explain them that they are books. They have a different notion of book, e-books and other things. They don't have these dust-ridden books. They don't have it. They
Hmm.
can't read it. तो वो इसी पर ये ऐसी इसी तरह एक और बंद है. किसी स्कूल के आगे
Hmm.
किसी स्कूल के आगे सड़क पर गोल गप्पों का मजा ले ले के जब बरसों से बिछड़ी औरतें मिल जाएं और फिर चिलबिली सी बच्चियां बन जाएं. चारों किस्सों के दफातर यकाएक इस तरह खुल जाएं कि चारों दास्तानों के सब दुख सब सुख अचानक एक हो जाएं. ये दुनिया
Yeah.
खूबसूरत है.
Beautiful.
इस तरह मैं लिखता जाता हूँ. मैंने अभी I am grateful to you that you asked me to write a Kashmiri ghazal also. I never repeat. I wrote a ghazal for this very occasion and I would love to read it
Please,
out.
please, please, sir. It will be pleasure.
Kashmiri ghazal for you. So you are the cause. Ghazal. To me, it is an industry. I can start any poem or ghazal at any time. So, but whether it is good or bad, I will not comment. You shook to Tibas as. You shook
Hmm.
Tibas as. Yeti shook Tatpi as.
Beautiful.
Whatever you are, you
Hmm.
shook whatever you are, be that.
Hmm.
Wherever you are, consider it your home.
Hmm.
Gasas kulen mazlas. Yeti zun kimsa las.
Ah.
Sayan chukhosankus. Who is afraid of shadows?
Hmm.
Margas kerith athwas. Were
Beautiful.
handshaken with death. Why should we be afraid of shadows?
Yes.
Zayan chu khotan kya? Margas kerit athwas.
Hmm.
Ye chu te ti chu pose. Whatever is visible is true. Baki sirf bakwas. Bu me to muni bas. Bu me mun to me.
Hmm.
Pan si panuk bas. These are four demonstrative pronouns in Kashmir. Bu me mun to me. Pan si panuk bas. Dos der. It's an image. Dos der barn bam. Jaya yatna pas.
Ah, beautiful.
Asa asa kinu badras. Wosa guzarit daf. Having spent the whole life, you say, Asa, kin badras, Ravan gahuk vasvas.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful. Great.
Lekhud Shefi, the last verse, the last two lines.
Hmm.
Lekhud Shefi Shaoq, Ponthan, Zachvi, Ponthan Zachvi Huinvas.
Yeah.
Ponthan means you are possessed for having walked through a lonely corridor.
Hmm.
Pathun Tashi Universe. Like that. The
Ah,
kafia, the rhyming word is very
this,
important in stirring images in my mind. And it is a succession of images. I always write poetry visibly. That is visually, I think
visual,
visually.
imagery,
Visual. That is my
imaginary.
poetry.
That's so
In
wonderful.
Hindi or English or whatever. But
Language
I
comes second.
never
Language is
I
just
got my Sahitya Academy for Kashmiri poetry, but I don't call myself worth that. I
mm,
write in Urdu. Of late, I was in Bangalore and I got some very felicitations etc. for Urdu poetry, but I never claimed to be any of them. But I have been writing poetry in all the four languages since my childhood. Since
that's so.
I was 19, I
It
was
naturally,
19.
it naturally.
Uh, 56 or no,
There's some,
64.
there's someone who says another kind of a silly thing which goes on nowadays. Everyone says, "I think in Kashmiri, I think in Urdu, I think in Urdu." Uh, I write in English. I say that I can think in English, I can think in Kashmiri, I can think in Urdu.
Oh,
I mean,
yes, yes.
it is not a matter domain of the kind of a scenario or the kind of part of evolution where you are there. It will decide that
No,
where you have to think
exactly.
because it has to be
I agree
indigenous.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Thank
Professor
you.
Saab, I would like to. There is one question, one objective question I would like to say because these questions are pertinent, they are important. I would like to ask because
Yeah.
all these जो सही ना क्या शिवानंद पंजाबी में कहते हैं डंग टपाओ होता है कि let it go status quo चलने दो
Mhm.
चलने दो तो biggest dishonesty intellectual dishonesty is that the great literateurs great people who are intellectually blessed they allow this kind of an attitude in their behavior. So what I want two questions. First two questions. I have heard that Teng Saab's time, Teng Saab, but because Laleshwari is one of the tallest, Deccan
Yes,
of Kashmir,
exactly.
right?
Mhm. The
And
founder of
on
Kashmiri literature, the founder of literature, and so far the greatest poet, the most profound poet
most
we have had in the
and,
languages.
and Hartley, Tolstoy, Tolstoy कुछ नहीं है, बहुत deep है, बहुत सरल है, simple है, touching है,
Or
and of course,
Kashmiri language is the only language of the subcontinent which was founded by a woman.
yes.
This is another additional thing that I can
So
claim
my
loudly.
yeah, my question is that how unfortunate we blame others, we Kashmiri, all Kashmiris. No, I know sectarian. I don't like sectarianism. Even I dislike this Ram Rahib concept. This is a very new 50-year-old concept. I don't like this. We are Kashmiris. We Kashmiris certainly there is something wrong with us that we don't know. Laleshwari has no visible sign on the ground. I heard that Trag Saab,
Thank
his
you.
name is Teng Saab. Teng
Thank
Saab
you.
tried to do some work, but I don't know what was the reason. This that at Pompor, that place where Laleshwari is supposed to live, we should have at least one ground. We talk about very high about Laleshwari, and people have started talking they're adding on many superlatives to the Laleshwari's literature, language. That's for another day. But there's no visible sign on the ground. We don't have a one memorial, one visible,
It is
physical.
very unfortunate, very unfortunate, very unfortunate. We have been fighting for it for so many decades, but mm, all is lost in the void of negligence. But at Pampur, at Padampura, there should have been a memorial and there should have been an intellectual seat or institution in the name of Laldet. There should have been. Not
Laltraj,
necessary. But unfortunately, what happens to these institutions? For instance, Sheikhul Alam Center in the University of Kashmir. Why should they always talk of Sheikhul Alam? Why not about the philosophy? Why not about history? Why not about the fauna and flora and the working culture of the times? So it is just an excuse of different intellectual pursuits. Similarly, if we have a chair in the university, either in Jammu or in Kashmir, particularly it should be in Kashmir, Laldet institution, where we could study Kashmir Shaivism, Sufism, Tasawwuf, interactions,
so, yeah,
cultural studies, and other things. But they confine it to just a few
Shastra, Shaivism.
scratch words, and other things. For what happens with Sheikhul Alam, Sheikh Nuruddin, what they, for instance, now they write thesis about the mention of Kangadi in Sheikhul Alam. This is bizarre. This is just nonsense. This kind of study should be discouraged.
This should be this doctorate, this research syndrome. I mean,
It's a
should
big
be destroying.
disease. It should be discouraged. Yes, exactly. I am
What I'm
myself
saying,
one of the. I'm one of whom who should be discouraged because I am a PhD. But I have yet to publish that PhD because it is just a formality.
Shok Saab, another question I wanted to ask was that there's, as per Nundaresh and Laleshwari, lot of interpolation, silly interpolation has happened. I remember
Yes.
Avatar Motaji, he had interviewed this Saki Saab, Motilal Saki Saab. He had said that there are
Mhm.
only 36 or 37 lalwaks, which are
Mhm.
original. There are
Mhm.
no other lalwaks. They are all interpolation. They have happened and added from different class of people, probably for the ignorance, for their own amusement, for their own flamboyance. They have
Mhm.
added and somebody for the name. I mean, and it has
Mhm.
happened with this Nundresh as well, but it is little with the Nundresh.
Mhm.
Mostly, it is interpolation has happened with the Laleshwari. I remember
Mhm.
one thing. There is one couplet like Mozan
Hindu
Hindu
Musalman.
Musalman. Hindu
Mhm.
Musalman. Where did the Laleshwari never refers in that era, Hindu Musalman, this connotation was not true. And she refers
Yes.
to Bata. Bata, she refers to the priest,
Priest.
the Brahmanical society
The
of that
learned
time,
people. Yes.
yeah,
The
which she
learned
was
people.
against.
Bhatta.
She wanted them to rise to the Trikasastra's actual essence. So, question is this whole interpolation business about such a great personalities, which is known all over the world, we all claim to be of our legacy. How justified it is, and what should be our role to dismantle
Mhm.
this
Uh,
kind of yeah.
I agree with you that interpolations have taken place in the poetry of every great poet because we just 200 years ago we belonged to an oral tradition, oral culture. All cultures in India were oral cultures before the beginning of literate culture. So they were orally transmitted from one generation to another. Interpolations were justified. But so far as Laldet is concerned, we I don't agree with Saki Sahab that there are only 36. There, in my book, I can just support my contention and that I have 134 works that are most authentic. You will say, why? How can you call them authentic works? I have given their translations, everything, glossary,
101. You
annotations.
say you claim 101 bucks.
No, 130 works.
Why?
130 works because we must not be biased in terms of deciphering old manuscripts. There is a manuscript that is called Mir Abdullah Bahiqi's manuscript. He belonged to the early part of the 17th century. He has uh, vividly, quite clearly said in his preface that I am trying, there are hundreds of manuscripts before me. In 17th century, he is writing, but all are scattered and haphazardly in a very hazardous condition. I am trying to compile this, my anthology, my collection, on the basis of those manuscripts, and he has categorized some shruks as lalabaks and some as shruk. Shruk. So lal, wak is shruk, and wak came from the 17th century. Unfortunately, our researchers do not go to the library, do not study the manuscripts. The manuscripts are to be, it is a lot of work. It needs years together to decipher just one line. So that has happened with Nand Rishi also. There are more than 20 compilations of Nandrishi's Kalam, but everything is not the same as is contained in the earliest manuscripts because the earliest manuscripts were not studied. Bhaskaracharya, for the first time, wrote it in Devanagari script, Lalwaks, and Grierson based his manuscript on him. But he did not have access to the Perso-Arabic manuscripts that contain Lalwaks. So interpolations cannot be said on the basis of that there are certain Persian words in Vox. How does it matter? Because we had interaction with Persia, we had interaction with Iran even before the advent
No,
of Islam.
it's not only about interpolation with regard to Persian or even
Words.
interpolation
Words.
within Kashmiri, within
Mhm.
Kashmiri. Interpolation is independent. I'm not talking only about the Persian or
Yes,
addition
yes,
or
yes.
something like that.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
in totality, I'm saying the interpolation happening.
Totality, yes. Interpolations are possible, are inevitable in a sense because they are from oral tradition to be compiled into the literal, this written culture.
I
So
think we should somewhere
interpolations,
try
but
to as
scholarly,
try
it is a scholarly discussion. It needs very discreet judgment of every word and every gesture, every vowel, every consonant there. Only then we can come to the conclusion. And there is no final word in any intellectual discourse. No
uh,
final word.
there should be a distinctive to go to the source. Unless and
Yes,
until people know Sanskrit, they should not read about Sanskrit, write about Sanskrit. Unless and
exactly.
until we know about Persian,
Exactly.
we're knowledgeable about Persian. Then we should
But
talk
at the
about.
same time, we should not have this kind of bias also. For instance, I for the first time in the subcontinent did a very Don Quixote type job translating Ghalib's Persian poetry into English. I am not a student of Persian. Of course, I know a little of English, but I used different lexicons. There are so many lexicons, and used it and saw that Ghalib's Persian poetry is more profound than his Urdu poetry, and compiled a collection, Ghalib's Persian poetry.
Ghalib's Persian
Thousand,
poetry. Yeah,
yeah, I translated it and published it, uh, and people admired it.
Persian
But
is
I
very
am not.
simple. It's a very
People
simple.
may condemn me. People, or there are people who condemn me to delve in such things which I do not know. But it is not their monopoly. I need not be a Persian MA to dabble in
No,
such
no,
a
no,
thing.
it's not question of formal qualifications. What I was
Yes,
asking is was that at least we must be able to see
yes,
to it that
yes.
interpolation doesn't happen, and it is not necessary to be very qualified at MAs or PhDs to know a language. But we must have an understanding of the language. Our ancestors, they were not very qualified people, but they knew Persian very well. They knew
Yes,
Sanskrit very well, irrespective
yes.
of what religions we. I mean,
Exactly,
so that's what I
exactly.
wanted to say and communicate.
That is correct.
Anyway, Professor Saab, it was very delight to talk to. There are many questions coming, but I don't think they are very uh, I don't feel like, I mean, बहुत लंबे लंबे questions हैं, so we have not. I don't do the question answer session, so let it be so today also. So with
Let
that,
it
I
be
would like.
open.
It was a
I'm
wonderful talking to you. Keep the line.
looking for looking forward to a next interaction between you and on a
Certainly,
particular subject. Because I have hand in different subjects. For instance, you could say
certainly.
we could have a discussion about the origin and development of
I
Kashmiri
hope
language.
I have enjoyed it thoroughly, and our spectators have enjoyed it very well. There will be people who will be looking after because they must be busy, and there are different parts of the world where night is there, where early morning is there. Maybe they go to the recorded versions of the YouTube as well. And Shitala, this we have to Facebook one page and one this group post where people normally approach it. But YouTube is also there. People just can watch on the YouTube as well. Thank you very much, Shok Saab. It was wonderful talking to you. We came through many indelible crisscross through many alleys of this wonderful journey of yours and understanding of Rishi Parampara and the wordology, and for a common man's perspective, which I probably hold. Thank you very much. It is a
I
great
am
pleasure.
grateful to you, Jugal Koul Sahab. You gave me the opportunity. We hardly find any occasion to speak. I did not know whether my vocal cords still work. You gave me the opportunity to try my vocal cords because there
Thank
is
you.
no occasion to speak. There is no possibility to speak because of certain reasons. We
Thank
hardly
you.
speak. So
Thank you
I am
very much.
grateful to
Thanks a
you,
lot.
Jugal Koul Sahab. Looking
Wonderful.
forward to next
Pleasure
interaction.
talking to
Thank
you. Pleasure talking to you. It's a delight
you.
for all our natives who live in this part of the country. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank
Best wishes. Jai Hind. Thanks a
you.
lot. So that was the learned personality, the great educationist, author who created this wonderful dictionary, voluminous dictionary, devoting his hard toil of 8 years, who's a very diversified person, a man who has studied English literature, worked for Kashmir, is a multilingual poet, has represented India at the international forums, literature, and he has many facets, wonderful facets, and speaks with eloquence, speaks with depth, speaks with honesty. And this was a very wonderful discussion. I hope you must have enjoyed, all of you. Thank you very much for joining today. I would like to go, but not without a couplet. I would like to conclude this today's show, but not without a couplet. Galib. Galib has been always my favorite. कहाँ मैखाने का कहाँ मैखाने का दरवाजा, गालिब और कहाँ वैस, कहाँ मैखाने का दरवाजा, गालिब और कहाँ वैस, पर इतना जानता हूं, कल वो जाता था कि हम निकले, कल वो जाता था कि हम निकले. अनदर वन. जला है जिस्म अगर, जला है जिस्म जहां दिल भी जल गया होगा, कुरेदते हो अब राख, जस्तजू क्या है. थैंक यू वेरी मच. गुड नाइट. प्लेजर टॉकिंग टू यू.
Good night.